Good morning. I just wanted to give a little how-to video and talk just a little bit about a major assignment that you have due on December 7th, which is the week before the last week of class. And it is writing a children's picture book, right? So um, I have a module that is specifically for writing a children's book assignment, and I just wanted to point it out to you and show you a couple different things, talk about the assignment and explain it so that you can start working on it. So just looking at the module right now, writing a children's picture book or children's book assignment. It is this is the directions, and I'm going to go over it in a second. Don't panic that it says November 2nd. It is not due on November 2nd, but I'll go over that in a second. Here you have writing a children's book assignment grading rubric. This is how I will grade your final assignment that is due on December 7th. So please take a look at that. It will show you exactly how to get an A in the class. So when you are writing your book and going through it, you can go back to the grading rubric, double check, make sure you've got all the elements that you need to get in that A column. All right. Tips for writing a children's book. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you look at this handout. It gives all sorts of great ideas and things to keep in mind for writing a children's book, coming up with ideas for a children's book and things like that. And then I have a story map number one example, which I will talk about in a second. So I'm just going to go to writing a children's book assignment so that you can see it. Okay, so the children's book project or writing children's picture book is worth 50 points. The entire thing is worth 50 points. But what I have done is I have broken it down into different steps, and each step has a different due date and has a little bit of points attached to it. So I'll get to that in a second. So the objective, the student will plan, write, illustrate, and publish their own children's book. When I say publish, please don't panic. What I'm talking about is you will put it all together, glue it all together, and actually make a physical book that we will then share together in Flipgrid. So when I say publish, not like through a publishing company, so don't panic. The directions. The student will move through the basic steps of creating and writing their own 10 to 14 page children's book. That seems like a lot, but it really isn't. It goes really fast. Each step will be worth part of the overall grade points of the final project. Once the book is written, the student will then illustrate and bind it, which is the publishing part. All right. So here are the steps. Overview of the steps that students will follow. First, you will gather details about their stories. Then you will develop a plot. Then you will create a storyboard. And then you will actually write and illustrate your book and then put it together in the publishing stage. Okay. Now, again, these are all different steps, and the steps have different due dates and different points. So step one is the gathering details, just like I said. This step one, is worth 5 points. Okay. To get your 5 points, you need to complete all 4 maps. Story map number 1, character map, setting map, and story map number 2. Now, you have already done a character map and a setting map previously on different picture books. You've kind of done a story map that's related, that kind of looks like these two. So these are not things you have never done. When, in this first 8 weeks of the class, when you had to do a setting map on a picture book and a character map on a character picture book and, plots and beginning, middle, and end and things like that, all of that was prepping you for you doing it on your own story. So these are not difficult. You've already done most of them, with other books. You're just now going to do these ones on your own characters, on your own book. Okay, so the first one is story map number 1, and it is due next Monday. Again, it's very simple. I'll come back to it and show you it in a second. And then the character map is due the next week, and the setting map is due the next week, and then the story map number 2 is due the 15th. Okay, so all of that needs to be done for this 5 points. Okay. Step 2 is called a plot pitch, and it is due right before Thanksgiving, right, 11/22. And here is the template that you will fill in. So basically, the plot pitch template takes all of this information that you have already done in this, this next few weeks, and you're putting it all together in a little bit more detail. So each step, each map, each template is taking it and making it more detailed and more detailed and more detailed, so that at the end, you've got all the information you need. You just need to write the story and draw the pictures, which we'll get to in a second. Don't panic. So step 2 is due right before Thanksgiving. It is also 5 points, and it is filling out this plot pitch template. Okay. Step 3 is making a storyboard. This takes a little bit more time, so it is worth 10 points. It is due after Thanksgiving, like right the week kind of after, so 11/29, the end of November. And I will be explaining it in more detail as we get closer, but you'll be using several pieces of just 8 by 11 or 8.5 by 11, right, paper to create a storyboard. And basically what you do is you fold it into 6 squares and you write each, the words that you will have for each page and the basic like stick figure illustrations that will go for each page of your book. Again, it's a little bit more complicated. You will use more than one piece of paper, so you'll be folding, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 and creating a storyboard, and then we'll be taking pictures of it and uploading the pictures so that I can grade it, because that part is worth 10 points itself. All right. And then step 4, which is the last step, is you're going to take all of this information that you've been working on over the last 8 weeks, and you will be putting it all together and making your own book. So you're going to write and illustrate and publish your own book, right? You use the storyboard, which was this step 3, and all the rest as a first draft, and then you're going to write and illustrate your actual book as your final draft. Then you will design and create the final draft of your book with a cover and all illustrations. And again, I will give you examples of all these things, so you don't have to panic about not knowing what to do. I'm going to show exactly what to do. Okay, so the entire thing is worth 50 points. Okay. So in the grade book, it will say children's picture book assignment or whatever, worth 50 points. So when you have finished, for example, all step 1, that will be worth 5 points. So at, on 11/15 or after 11/15, I will give you, if you've done all of these maps, you will get 5 out of 50 points, which again sounds bad. Remember, each part is worth, more and more. After the 22nd of November and you've done your plot pitch, then you will have 10 out of 50, and then 20 out of 50. And then, of course, if you finish the whole thing, there's a potential for 50 out of 50. Okay, so there will only be one grade book assignment, and I will just be adding points as we go along to that assignment. All right. So, and then let me go back. Okay, so so that is, sorry, the writing a children's book assignment. Again, it says currently November 2nd, but that is just for that very first story map, right? That's that story map right there is the only thing that's due on the 2nd, so don't panic. This is the grading rubric. Right? So, and actually, it's not out of 3 points. It is out of 50 points. So the points here will change a little bit, but just kind of it's so you can see what is due, right? So you have to have a cover, the text, the grammar and spelling is going to be checked, the use of literary devices, which means the different figurative language, similes, metaphors, those types of things, which again, you've already looked at, you've already examined, you've already found examples of. So that's, none of this is new. Plot, the different areas of plot. And again, you did a plot map on different picture books, the rising action and the climax and resolution and all those things. So again, nothing new to you. You just have to do it in your own story. The illustrations, Again, this is not necessarily an art class, but I do want illustrations that are neat, that are visually pleasing, that work with this with the text. Obviously, we want a high quality picture book, right? And that is obvious that you've put some time into, right? So no stick figures on a blank piece of paper with a pencil type of thing, right? I don't expect you to be, you know, Marie Sendek or some, Eric Carle, but I do expect you to put some thought and some effort into the illustrations. And as we get closer to the illustrations part, we can talk about, and you can go back to illustrators, that module, and look at there. You can do illustrations in a million different ways. You can use paint, you can use pencil, you can use pen, you can use, like Eric Carle used, tissue paper and things like that. So there's lots and lots of different ways to be creative. You do not have to be an artist or a drawer or things like that. There's lots of ways that you can do illustrations that are really fun. So we'll talk about that. So don't panic. But that is the grading rubric, right? And sorry, there we go. Tips for writing a children's book. Like I said, I highly recommend that you take some time first thing off and look at this. It gives you all sorts of different ideas and things to consider, and for your story, to make your story really, really good. I think it's a really great little handout, some of the illustrations, characterizations, conflict, plot, all that stuff. So please look at this handout, and I will be adding other handouts and websites and tips and things to make this process really easy for you. So there's that. And then, just so you know, your story map, which is going to be due next Monday, the 2nd, I will always put an example of what I am thinking about. This is story map number 1. So here is my example. Obviously, I have my name. You will want some sort of title. It does not have to be the final title. It's just a draft. It's just an idea of what you might want the title of your book to be. It will not have to stay this way. It can change as you're going through this process. So I just put as my draft title, Spike in the Big World. Right, and then for this story map, there's a beginning, a middle, and and end, right? So you will need to write notes in each one of the sections. This is a Word doc, so you can type right into it, right? So in the beginning, Spike the tortoise is in the backyard but wants to see the world. That's how the story is going to begin. Again, it can be very basic. It doesn't have to be in perfect sentences or anything like that, but I do want you to get your ideas out of what's going to happen maybe at the beginning of your story, who the character is or are, things like that, but in a simplified manner, right? In the middle of my story, Spike gets out of the backyard through an open gate and wanders around his neighborhood. He meets different animals, maybe a butterfly or something like that. He gets lost and has to be rescued by a family who calls his family to come and get him. So that's what's going to happen in the middle of my story. And then at the end, Spike's owner comes and gets him and brings him home. He is now happy just living in his own backyard. So that's the kind of resolution, right? Again, doesn't have a lot of detail yet, doesn't have a lot of specifics yet. It's just some ideas about what's going to happen at the beginning, the middle, and the end of my story. Okay, so this is story map number 1. And this is just the example so you guys can take a look at it, of the one that is actually due on November 2nd. So that'll be the first one. Okay, so as I said, keep checking back for this, because I will be adding new kind of websites that have great tips and handouts, and always an example of whatever story map is going to be kind of coming up next, so that you can look at it, and you will just submit them um, through the writing the children's book assignment, and we will just kind of keep updating. Okay, so if you ever have any questions, obviously email me or come to office hours, to the live chat, whenever your office hours are, which is Thursday. I don't have it in front of me. I think 9 to 10. I can answer immediate questions, or we can Zoom right then, or things like that. So this should be a fairly easy assignment. It seems big, it seems large, it seems, kind of intimidating, but it really isn't. And the way it's broken down is going to just kind of walk you right through the process. And by the time you know it, uh, you will have a personal, individualized children's picture book that you are now the author and illustrator of. Okay, so I hope that helps. Keep looking at this and let me know if you have any questions. Okay.